Welcome to the Vegan Gym Live. Today, we're diving into some important topics surrounding menopause and weight management, particularly addressing why traditional advice might not work and what women can do instead. Welcome to the Vegan Gym Live. I am Dr. Daphne Bascom, and I'm your host for today. If you are tuning in for the first time, welcome. We're excited to have you here. And if you're returning for another amazing episode, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Our goal is to provide you with the latest and most effective information to optimize your health and fitness as a vibrant, healthy vegan. And to do that, I have one of our amazing rock star coaches, Coach Sarah Bright. Sarah, welcome back to the Vegan Gym Live.
Oh, thanks for having me, Daphne. It's nice to be here.
So, Sarah, you are my amazing co host for our Menopause Mastery program. And I appreciate you coming on to have a conversation around why eat less, move more. It's been conventional wisdom, it's part of the diet culture. But why can this approach really be harmful for women going through menopause?
Thank you for asking. It's so important to talk about. This has been the conventional advice. If you go to your GP or do your research on social media, you'll hear this all the time. Cut calories, cut calories, get out there and do more cardio, right? Burn more calories, eat less calories. And the fact is, if that worked, women in menopause and women in general would be the absolute fittest people on the planet, because it isn't as if people aren't trying
Exactly.
this advice. It isn't as if people hear it and are like, forget that, right? It's not working. So I was really interested in digging in and finding out sort of exactly why. We know anecdotally it doesn't work. So why? Why doesn't it work? And what does work?
Mm-hmm.
So can we just start with the idea of move more?
Absolutely.
Let's just break it down. So when people think of move more, it's always like going out for a run, getting on the treadmill, doing super hard cardio classes. And it's not to say that those aren't fun or they can't be part of what you do if you enjoy them. But too much of the time I hear people saying, "Oh, I go out running because I'm trying to burn more calories. I'm trying to earn my food."
No.
Yeah. And here's the thing about cardio in general. You might burn a few more calories, but cardio like that tells your body, okay, now we need to eat more. And it really stimulates hunger a lot. So us poor women are like, okay, I'll move more. So we go out and we go for a run or we go for long bike rides because we think we have to, not because we love it or we're getting some other benefit from it, but because we're out there with the sole purpose of burning calories. And then our bodies think, okay, great. Now I need more
Feed me.
food. Feed me.
Yeah.
And so we're starving. And so you can either be starving, which doesn't work very well for very long, or you eat. And then you maybe eat more than you intended to, or different kinds of things than you intended to, because your body's starving. The other interesting thing about high intensity exercise, which is different than high intensity interval training, which I want to talk about too, but high intensity exercise or excessive exercise like that, is that one of the body's hormonal responses to exercise is to produce cortisol.
Stress.
Exercise is a stressor. It's a good stressor, right? Right. We have eustress and distress, and exercise generally, I think we can consider to be a positive stress, but stress is stress and the body has a response. And so now you're extra hungry and your body has more cortisol floating around in it. And cortisol had, aside from the fact that it's going to make you want to eat to lower your stress levels, if anybody happens to be a stress eater, and so you've got more inflammation in your body that's caused by stress. Cortisol reduces our insulin sensitivity. So then you're not even really utilizing well the food that you do eat, and you're more likely to store it as fat or have trouble clearing the glucose out of your bloodstream. And so there's just so many different things that happen hormonally and psychologically when we take the advice, move more, at kind of face value. I don't think anybody's giving that advice to hurt you, but it's a little bit more complex than simply getting out for a cardio session to burn calories. So that's sort of the first way that traditional advice maybe doesn't serve us
Yep.
as well as we had hoped. Um, Eating less. Eating so I don't know about you or anyone listening, but I kind of grew up on the idea that 1,200 calories was the magic number
Of
for
course.
a night, right? Well, I don't know what it was about 1,200 calories, but I like to joke with my clients. I'm like, 1,200 calories is what a toddler needs to survive. You
Not a
might
grown woman. Yeah.
not a grown woman who is very busy, has a family, has a job, has activities, volunteers, is also trying to move more, right? So we just have this idea in our head that if we eat less and less and less, that we'll lose weight. But what we find happens is the body feels like it's in a crisis. The psychological struggle of trying to hold yourself to an extremely low calorie diet, or even just a moderately low calorie diet
Mhm.
where you're trying really hard to just fuel your body. The psychological stress of that creates more cortisol. It's a psychological stress. It's a physical stress. I always like to say the body goes into lockdown. It starts reducing its it starts de-optimizing its performance. Your organs start to work less well. Your cells start to work less well. Your body is brilliant. Bodies are so smart, and it's trying to figure out, okay, if I am starving to death, what can I get rid of? What don't I have to do to live and survive, not even thrive or do well, but survive on this low level of calorie? And the stress that causes our brains and our bodies, again, back to cortisol, back to insulin resistance, back to poor glucose uptake, back to inflammation, and all of these things that prevent us from losing unwanted weight or even just living an optimal
Health.
life. Yeah, it's so it cutting and cutting calories just causes more and more stress on your body. Besides, if your body has fat stores, which is typically what we're trying to get rid of when we think of weight loss, is truly fat loss, your body has no incentive to get rid of those fat stores at any sort of rate that you would find appealing, because
When you're starving.
when you're starving, it's like, oh no, I'm going to need this. Hold on to
Mhm.
everything you've got. So I do find with clients, and I think a lot of the coaches find this, when we raise the calories, your body relaxes a little bit, your brain relaxes a little bit, and there's a signal that happens, and your body says, it's okay. The crisis is over. Food is coming regularly, and I can release some of this storage. I don't need to hold on to it because there will be new food, new fuel coming in to help me function, right? Your body's brilliant, but we don't respect its sort of natural mechanisms that are really just helpful to us. Your body's trying to help you out by
Mhm.
holding on to that fat, and we're trying to fight it the whole time. So,
And Sarah, I mean, you've made some amazing points, and let me recap a little, and then I have another question for you. So, women going through perimenopause and menopause, we may experience either a redistribution of body fat from the hips to the abdomen, so that abdominal fat may increase. We may experience that weight gain, a little bit of the menopause that can happen as we're going through this midlife change. But your point is around move more, is that one, movement shouldn't be punitive. So you're not punishing your body to try and burn calories. And I want to ask you what should women do in order to, because the movement is great for your muscles, it's great for your bones, but how do we move in a way that is positive, but also that you can't achieve some of the other gains, like gaining lean muscle, which is positive because it improves your insulin sensitivity, it improves your strength. If you're not feeding your body, you're not going to have the infrastructure to grow muscle. So, how do you advise women around what do I do to move? What is that? And I'm saying movement, so I'm not constraining people to going to the gym, but how do I move and how do I fuel my body in a way that can help me meet some of those goals? Maybe it's fat loss, maybe it's recomposition, but midlife is this kind of I don't look the way I used to look and I'm not certain what to do.
That's so true. And I think that's sort of its own stressor is
It
things
is.
are changing and we're not entirely sure why, but we also know that we're definitely not supposed to like it. So that is a whole sort of other issue to get into. But yes, to your point with movement, I think it's important that movement bring us joy.
I agree.
I really believe that, and I think that it's hard to find that joy if you're not accustomed to finding joy in movement. I'd like to remind people that you cannot hate your body into change. You really have to kind of love it there,
Yeah.
right? It sounds kind of silly, but almost you would never punish a child into the behaviors that you want, not effectively anyway,
Hmm.
right? We love our children into change and into healthier habits. And we need to be willing to do the same for ourselves. So I think one of the most important things we can do is find joy in movement. And again, I'm not saying don't go running. If you love running, by all means, that's your joy. Go. But it's not punitive. You're not punishing yourself because you ate well yesterday, right? So we don't want to set um, that sort of scale up for ourselves. But if you're looking for really specific ideas on great ways to move in menopause to sort of achieve some of that, I think you and I would both go for heavy strength training, right?
Exactly.
Pick up some heavy stuff, put it down, go home, right? Heavy strength
Yeah.
training, the benefits just, I feel like it would be hard to overstate how important that is. I think a lot of people know that we tend to lose muscle mass, lose our muscles at an alarming rate, like half a pound of muscle every year after 30 or something
Work
like
too
that.
hard to get it. Don't want to
Work
lose
so
it.
hard and then we don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only way to hold on to it or to gain it is to do some heavy strength training. And I think we're taught a lot, about being afraid of bulking up. Um, it's just hormonally not going to happen. It's especially not going to happen in menopause. Bulking is a very challenging thing to do. So I think if we can let go of some of that worry and really embrace how fun it can be to lift that heavy weight. The physical benefits are tremendous. I've also seen the psychological benefits
It's
be amazing.
empowering. Yeah.
It's so empowering, just like
Mhm.
looking at a heavy deadlift bar, a barbell, and just being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pick that up. Right. And just knowing that you have the power and the strength to do hard things can change your body and change your mind and your entire outlook on yourself. So I think strength training is something that we should all really, really look into. Get a coach if you're unsure of where to start or how to do it.
Exactly.
Uh, I think a lot of women who have not ever participated in heavy strength training are concerned with injury, and rightly so. But strength training is very safe when done properly and will actually reduce your risk of injury. I read a study recently that said women in peri and postmenopause who strength train have something like a 32% less risk of frailty related injuries, um, meaning we're less likely to fall and
Yep.
break bones. Our balance, our agility is better. And So all of those benefits come from the strength training and some of that work. And the strength training is beautiful because it's a controlled environment, right? You know what you're going to do. You set yourself up. You've got your mind on it. It isn't careless, mindless movement. So it objectively is very safe when done properly. The other thing I love to recommend for women, sort of in that those 10 years prior to menopause and then afterwards, is HIIT training, which I think I mentioned earlier, high intensity interval training, which is wonderful for bone density. It's great. It is great for muscle sparing. I think you were mentioning earlier, when we do too much cardio, we reduce our ability to build muscle, and then our bodies start to use muscle sometimes for fuel because we haven't eaten enough, perhaps. But that high intensity interval training is what we like to call a muscle sparing type of exercise, meaning you get to keep the muscle that you're building with the strength training, and you also get the bone density benefits and the cardiovascular benefits. And it isn't move more, because you can do a lot of work in a shorter period of time.
Move smart. Yeah.
Move, yes, exactly, right? It's not move more, it's move smart, move right. And it is uncomfortable, or it can be uncomfortable if you're really doing it. But again, I would go back to, you're a 50-year-old woman, you're a woman in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. You can do hard things. The fact that you're existing in this world proves it. So trust yourself, build that kind of self-efficacy and that knowledge that you can really do hard, uncomfortable things for your own sake, for your own health and wellness and longevity, and to be there for the people in your life who count on you. So I think that the idea of moving is wonderful, right? And we just need to learn to find the joy in it. And there's a lot of different ways to move. Find one that works for you. Cycling HIIT is great, right? Some people love plyometrics. Some people are not fan. Plyometrics, the jumping up and down. Some people don't love it. That's fine too. There are so many ways to find these different movements that will give you these benefits, where you don't have to just exhaust yourself every day trying to walk for hours and hours, or ride or run for hours and hours. So I think moving smart is just the best advice we can give women in peri and postmenopause.
I 100% agree. And again, you made a point, which is it's never too late to start. So the best time to plant a tree is now. Perimenopause, awesome. You can start to lay the foundation to retain everything that you have gained. But if you're 60, 70, start today, because it will still, to your point, not only improve your lifespan, but your health span. And none of us want to be frail as we grow older.
That's right. That's right.
And so, Sarah, an important question then, and I mean, this is a hot topic, so you can push back if you don't want to answer, or you can advise everyone in the community to talk to their coach about it. Protein.
Yes.
Is protein important for women during menopause? How much protein do I need to support muscle retention, muscle gain? And is it important just for my, forget all of that. Is it important for my metabolic health?
I wondered if we were going to talk about this.
The P word.
The P word. I never really thought protein would be such a controversial topic, but it is. And so let's talk about it, right? Again, everybody is going to have to always talk to your coach, talk to your doctor. And there are certain medical conditions that will necessitate limited protein intake, kidney function. There's a variety of things. So obviously within the apparently healthy population, that's what we'll talk about here. If you have specific concerns, your doctor's the place to go for that. But protein, again, is what we like to call a muscle sparing nutrient. Protein helps us hold on to the muscle that we've built so that we're not cannibalizing it for fuel as we go about our lives, right? We want to use the carbohydrates that are stored in our body. We want to use the fat that's stored in our body. We don't want to use the stored protein from our tissues to fuel our lives. And so one way we do that is by consuming enough protein. And I don't think it's a hot topic or a hot take that protein needs actually increase as
That
we age.
should not be a hot
Yeah,
take.
that is not a hot take. That is well supported by the research. In fact, again, thinking we might talk about this, I brushed up a little bit, and a meta-analysis that I read said up to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So did a little math,
A little
meaning
calculation.
a little calculations, which means if you are a 150-pound woman, 68 kilograms, that's up to 109 grams of protein a day might be best for muscle sparing, for bone health, for just general support of the tissues, which I think sounds like a lot to a lot of people, but
It's
I don't know that it is.
And it's satiating.
And it's satiating.
Mhm.
But again, and I feel like 109 grams of protein flies in the face of eat less. there's, there's
Yes.
nothing less.
We're not saying eat all of this from protein powder. We want you to
Oh,
eat
no,
food.
definitely not.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we may talk about this later, but just broadly, eating in general, whole foods, plant-based, again, not a hot take. It's been shown over and over and over again to be the best dietary approach for everyone, but
Mhm.
specifically women in menopause. Whole foods, plant-based can reduce an extraordinary number of symptoms of menopause.
Exactly. Yep.
Reduces hot flashes, actually reduces the initial weight gain, right? If you're starting early enough in your 30s or 40s, using a whole foods plant-based diet can help prevent the weight gain as you sort of ease into those years. But anyway, back to protein. Sorry, a little side note, but back to protein. Provided that your kidneys are healthy and you can manage it, protein is an excellent macronutrient to focus on and be cognizant of increasing your intake slightly.
Yes.
It is interesting because I'm fascinated by sort of the zeitgeist of macronutrients right now. Somehow we're supposed to eat low carb, low protein, and low fat. Like I just, like, I don't
Which is where
entirely,
fewer calories comes in.
which is where those are your choices. You got to eat from those three groups. And so I think really allowing yourself to enjoy the protein, find protein sources that are good, that you digest well, that are high quality, that are whole foods, that support health and longevity and wellness and will fuel you for all of the things that you're doing with your life. I will tell you, Daphne, I don't know any women that are just sitting around these days.
No.
Everybody, they're doing things, they're busy, and eating well will fuel that life and help sort of reduce some of that food noise when we're constantly like cut, no more, don't eat this, can't eat this is bad, right? When we can sort of free ourselves up to say protein is good, carbohydrates are good, fat is good. When we have a little bit more space in our brains for that way of thinking, it becomes a little bit easier to not worry so much about eating less, right? Eating well, like maybe eating smart, but just eating well. Find foods that are healthy, that make you feel good. And include lots of protein as part of that. Metabolically, it's going to help with your weight gain or weight loss. It's going to help with body recomposition. It's going to make you feel fuller for longer so that you don't feel like you have to binge because you've been starving for so long, which I think is another, and a lot of us know from personal experience, you can eat less for a few days, but eventually it will catch up with you. And then you will eat more perhaps than you really wanted to, or the kinds of things that you weren't hoping to eat.
Right. The choices you make
The
are important.
choices you make are important.
Yeah.
But eating less does not help us make better choices. I'll tell you that 100%.
No. And I mean, it's funny because this is probably a conversation for another podcast, but I was reading an article about a growing incidence of disordered behaviors with food in postmenopausal women. So that, that food noise that you mentioned is real.
Yeah.
And starving yourself for 5 days and then binging for 2 days will not help you meet your goals either,
No,
because the area under the curve for your total caloric intake is still going to be most likely higher than what either your maintenance is or what that target may be for fat loss.
exactly. Exactly. Yes. And that's sort of the cyclical nature of dieting, which is why we also say diets don't work. We're supposed to diet, but diets don't work. There's so much noise out there and there's so many conflicting things coming into our heads that I think let's simplify. Eat well, move smart. Maybe that's the new menopause advice.
That's what it should be. And Sarah, as we start to wrap up, from a holistic perspective, because I love that you approach this not just, I mean, looking at our foundational principles related to nutrition, movement. You mentioned stress. We could probably have a whole conversation just on how women through perimenopause and menopause, postmenopause, that stress response and the contribution of chronic stress to our challenges with losing fat, with being mentally and physically healthy. But what is your holistic recommendation for women who are trying to manage their weight through midlife?
I think it's a lot more than calories in, calories out, right? We also need to be looking at stress management. Stress management is not stress elimination, because I think some people immediately go to taking stress out of our lives. But let's think about tools that we can develop to manage the stress that we have so that we can mitigate the response of our bodies to the stress that's going to exist in life. What are some tools that you can develop? Is that a yoga practice? Is that a meditation? Is it breath work? Is it taking a walk? Is it time in nature? Is it time spent cuddling with your dog? What are the things that reduce the physical manifestations of your stress,
Mhm.
right? So addressing stress. Sleep, which
Mhm.
we can't even begin to get into fully here, but sleep, creating a good sleep routine, getting enough sleep, which is a huge challenge in menopause. So, but really giving yourself the best possible shot at taking care of your sleep, protecting the hours that you have to sleep and trying not to fill them up with chores or Netflix or scrolling, right? All of the things that get in the way of getting the rest that we need. And I think one thing that women miss a lot is social support.
Mhm.
That can really go by the wayside, and we're trying really hard to take care of all of the people around us, and we forget how important it is to connect with other people to provide support in a social group. And that can be just out with friends, that can be a phone call with a beloved family member, that could be a Zoom meeting with people that are
Exactly.
there are so many ways. There are, if you have a religious affiliation, there's great ways to get support in life. And I think that's sometimes one of the first things to go, and one of the most important things for our health, for our longevity. Study after study shows that social support and connection to your
Connection.
community is one of the most wonderful, amazing things you can do for your health. So I really encourage people to look at their whole person,
Yeah.
When trying to address weight, but also just your general happiness factor in your life. How much are you enjoying this life that you plan to live for so long? So I think that's sort of a holistic approach.
Agreed. And talking about community, we had a question from someone in our community around when you're calculating your protein goal, is it based on your ideal weight or your current weight? And thank you, Jocelyn.
That is a terrific question. And I would start, if you are at the beginning of your journey, I personally would start by calculating your protein intake based on your current body composition, not necessarily your weight, but perhaps your lean body mass. Start with what you've got and then see how that works. You can, when you pick a level of protein that you're going to eat, you're not making a lifetime commitment to it. You're not legally bound to 109 grams, nor is 109 grams the end all be all, right? That's the midpoint of a range, right? So let's not get all too caught up in it. But I would start with your current weight and then notice how you feel and then adjust up or down based on that. And then as your body composition changes and as your weight changes, reevaluate from time to time. And be very cognizant, I think, with everything about the results that you're getting, not just on the external data, but when you do a self-check. I feel satiated. I feel happy with the foods that I'm eating. I feel good. I feel energetic, right? I know that feels like soft data because it's hard to quantify,
It's
but I think
real.
it's so real.
Yeah.
It's so real. Do you feel emotionally stable at the level of food that you're eating and the level of protein that you're consuming? Are you able to handle stress when it comes your way? Under eating will not help you manage your stress. Will not have the resolve, the resources, the reserves to manage those kinds of things. So that's a great question.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And thank you, Sarah, because I mean, breaking this mindset, and it is a mindset, it's not going to happen with one conversation. So I know that we'll be talking about this hopefully again in the future. And I would encourage, I know Coach Sarah actually leads a menopause mastery program for athletes in the Vegan Superhero Academy. So if you want to learn more about how to navigate midlife, and I'm saying that because it's from perimenopause onward, and this is really you understanding your body as a woman and how do you optimize your health, how do you optimize the three things that Sarah mentioned, your health span, your lifespan, and your joy span, because they all have to intersect. You can't just squeeze the balloon here and not think it's going to pop out on the other side. So we want to empower you with this knowledge. Sarah, any last words of advice before we wrap up for today?
I think find ways that you can move and eat and enjoy your life that bring you joy, that bring you happiness, because that's really going to make living day to day the best it can be, right? Let's try not to get too caught up on what should be, what could be, what was, and focus a lot on the joy that's in your life right now.
Today. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. As many of us know, menopause is having a moment, and it's a great opportunity for whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, to learn more about this time of life, because it can be a beautiful time of life. And it's for you to understand your body, not to feel like you're fighting against your body or that you're trying to meet a standard or a norm that maybe isn't attainable or maybe isn't realistic. If you would love to hear more about menopause, let us know in the chat. We're open to having conversations around any topic. And more importantly, if you're already a VSA athlete, I would encourage you to matriculate into our Menopause Mastery course. Thank you again. We're going to give you a break. Next week, we were going to be at our annual Vegan Superhero Retreat. So you get 2 weeks of No Vegan Gym Live. We will be back on September 11th at 11 a.m. with Coach Tiana. And we're going to be having a conversation about how to reduce overwhelm in your fitness journey. Until then, superheroes, be well, be healthy, and we'll see you in 3 weeks. Take care.